Good morning, BlackStar. Yes. Good morning, good morning. So happy to be here on the Saturday morning, day 4 of our festival. We're so excited to be talking with Wally Fall here. Before we get started, I want to read his bio. Your film played yesterday at 8:30, and a lot of people really enjoyed it. There's been great feedback. Wally Fall is a Martinican Senegalese director who grew up in Martinique. His first films confront the notions of identity, history, and belonging from a Caribbean perspective. He is one of the founders of the Cinema One Film Collective in 2016, which works to give more visibility to films from Africa and the Afro-descendant diasporas of the world and the Americas in general, which, in particular, which often go unnoticed on commercial circuits or at festivals. He lives in, is it Guadalupe, or do they say Guadalupe?
Guadeloupe.
Guadalupe. I knew that, Texas. And and shares his time between filmmaking projects and curating films within Cinema One. Dancing the Stumble is his 4th film. Please give a warm round of applause for Wally Frank.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Such a beautiful film. I saw it yesterday, and there were so many beautiful, beautiful moments. So, like, just even personally, as someone who is very keen on creating work around mental health, masculinity, queerness, all of this, I just felt like this film was like, it did everything for me. You know, clearly not somebody who's from Martinique or anything like that, but someone who could understand the universality. I always have problems with that word, but the universalness of the film. Dancing the Stumble is your 4th film, but your feature debut. What are some of the lessons you learned in taking up this project of this great magnitude?
Thank you for that question and your comments. It was actually my 2nd feature. The first one I did was a documentary I did in Senegal. I shot it 10 years ago. It was really self-produced and everything. I went with my dad, actually. We're from there. So I traveled to Senegal I was following him because it was going to be the first time he was going to vote for the presidential elections. He had never done it before for many reasons. So I thought there was something there that would allow me to talk about him, myself, Senegal, and how to live in between, or how I grew up in between those worlds, the Caribbean and Africa. But that film took a long time for me to finish, for, again, many reasons that are to do with financing and finding the right people to tell that story, because it's a complex story. It's when I wanted to talk about mental health issues in Martinique, it was obviously to talk about it because I was confronted to it personally, because I had people around me that went through psychiatric diagnosis, close family members or friends. So I was coming from there, and I knew I wanted to tell a story where mental health wasn't something that was only institutional, meaning inside a hospital. I knew I wanted to talk about something that was just around us, and not only when you are down, you know. So it took a long time for all those reasons, because it took me time to find the right people to tell the story. And I think that when I realized that I had found them, I knew it was time to shoot the film.
Yeah, I can understand that. The people and trusting that process is sometimes what takes time, but it's good that that happens. In fact, our other filmmaker, Violeta Ayala, was saying the same thing about the documentary. Like, she had to just learn to trust the process of it happening that way, the way that it did. What made you choose BlackStar for the world premiere of Dancing the Stumble, and how did it feel yesterday to see it there?
I think BlackStar chose me as much as I chose them. Um, I'm really happy that it premiered here because I I have my previous short was featured here 2 years ago, Plowing the Stars. It was an experimental short film, and I really loved the way they showcase your work and they put it in perspective, no matter where you're from, even when you're from a small islands of the Caribbean. It's not that common, I think, in the US. So I really loved that from the very beginning. This year, I was part of the experimental film programmers committee with Alia and Desan, and it was a really great experience for me to talk about films and yeah, understand how people connect to films, and that made me realize that we were part of one family, really, because we had that way of talking about films without I mean, and always trying to understand everything around the film. It's not just about the film; it's about who makes the film, how they made the film, and we all agreed on with that. With Nihad too, was always a part of the meetings we had, and so because I was part of that committee, I had second thoughts about submitting my film, because I was like, oh, I'm part of that committee. I'm gonna oh, how does that, you know? I didn't want to mix if
Nepotism?
something like that. I really, yeah, I'm always careful with that. And, but I realized that, okay, if they don't like the film, because we had that situation in our committee where we knew some directors, and I realized that the discussions were quite open with that, you know? So if we don't like the film or we don't think it fits there, we won't take it, as simple as that. So I thought, okay, let me send it. And I really submitted the film like 10 minutes before deadline. That's how reluctant I was at first. And yeah, so it got selected, and I was really, really happy that it was gonna screen here before anywhere else. I mean, it screened back home because it was made. I mean, it was made with TV money in it, so it went on TV over there. But yeah, it's the first time ever it's been screened in a festival, and yeah, really, really happy it's here.
Yeah, we're so happy that you did it at the 11th hour. You sent it in with 10 minutes to go because everyone got to benefit from
Yeah.
your film. I think that sometimes we stay humble in the good things that we create, and sometimes we forget, like, oh, it's not really about how I feel, it's really about
Yeah.
the story and how it's
Yeah.
going to change people or make
Yeah.
people feel. Yeah, so thank you. Dancing the Stumble is such a beautiful and tender film in the way that it explores humanness and the role culture plays in our limited ability to empathize and address mental health. With whom and within which context or spaces do you want this film to live?
I want the film to live with us as a community, as communities that can see themselves represented on the screen, first of all, because I really hoped that the film would hit really broader than just in Martinique, that people could connect to it no matter where they're from, because I think the germ is something that reunites so many people from across the world, whether they are of African descent or not, you know. I think that mental health issues is something profoundly human, so you can relate to that for me. I mean, you could be maybe from Mars even, and still relate to it. So I hope that after September, we can screen it back home and have discussions around the film, because we didn't have any films. I don't think there was a film like that before where we could really talk about all those issues. I'm talking about back home. I don't know about here. I think here you had that issues had been addressed already.
I think that
Maybe
this
not that
film
way.
was so powerful that I think that it's how a story is told too, and the discussions that come after that. And but please
Yeah,
carry
but
on.
yeah, I mean, as long as it's just a starting point, so we can talk about these issues and how we deal with it in our families, in our communities, and how we can improve the way we respond to that collectively. Yeah, that's where I want the film to live first. Festivals obviously is part of the process, so people know about the film, and I'm always glad to see how people respond to it. But I really hope it's gonna be, yeah, a way to expand the healing process, if I can say it like that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing all of that. I want to go off script with the question. You said that and then I'll bring it back to the film, but actually, I'll read this question first and then I'll go off script. All right. At the same time, art and culture gives us medicine to treat and heal societal ills, like the practice of ballet to reconnect ourselves with our bodies and find peace there. How were you careful in making sure that you captured that while not disturbing the healing space you were observing? I thought, like I've been saying, like people know this film is so beautiful, and I'm sure you had to be super intentional about how you approach that.
The process was long. I mean, I took 4 or 5 months to really get to know the people in the film. So I spent always a couple of days in the daycare hospital with them, watching films together, talking about the films, talking about the point of view. When you shoot a film, you can say 100 stories shooting the same stuff. So because they needed to know where I was going. They needed to trust me. They needed to be sure I wasn't gonna betray them, because it was precious to give me the authorization to film them without blurring their faces. It was a challenge. We had to convince them. It took time, and so that's where it started. And the team, the daycare hospital team, were really paramount in helping us achieve that, because they really they wanted the film to happen so much that they made sure, everyone knew everything that was going to happen. So they made sure everyone knew the process and nobody was left behind. And so it took there was that time. Then when we went into shooting, I said it yesterday, and the difficult part was the fact that I think I wanted to respect the spaces, because Simeline, the woman who is doing the drumming and who is leading the workshops, she always made sure there was a circle, and I tried to avoid as much as possible to break into that circle, not to break the energy going there. Sometimes it was harder because I worked with someone that didn't understand that, and so it took energy to tell her, we don't get into the circle, okay? Try to respect the circle, shoot from behind shoulders or what. I know, find another way not to get into the circle. So sometimes we managed to do that. Sometimes it was more difficult, created some tensions even. But because I mean, for me, you have to find the right place to shoot the film and without disrupting what's happening. That was important, so important for me, because it was an experiment. So how are you going to shoot an experiment if you don't put your big camera in the middle of everything? That's not working. You're breaking something. To me, it was so obvious. But yeah, so it was harder some days. Some days it was harder.
I think that that's something that a lot of filmmakers have to navigate with, especially with documentaries. It's like, are you shooting it to get the shot, or are you shooting it with your heart as a part of the project? And I think that it's sad for us to hear that, I'm sure, but then it's also like, it's, I think that through those conversations, it actually transforms artists to show up better. So I'm
It
sure
was
that
it was challenging, and it made me grow a lot personally, and realize how important my position is. I mean, all the time. I cannot, and I was supposed to be more involved in the process of what was happening, but I couldn't do that, unfortunately, because of those tensions. And
they're fired. They're fired from now on. You're never working with them ever again.
yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that during the shooting, so I had to go to go all the way. So, but yeah, it was. I realized, yeah, there are some, and we had those conversations before with the team, and so it was really hard to see that they still didn't get it. I mean, at some point, I mean, how important it was. But yeah, that's another story.
Another story for
Yeah.
another day. With all the tensions that came out of the film, I just want to say, I'm not trying to trivialize all the problems that happened, but really, like, it's a beautiful, golden piece. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think that we're almost close to time. Okay. I you spoke a little bit about your involvement in the BlackStar family and having that kind of camaraderie, but I also wanted to ask you, I know you're also on the experimental program committee. Can you tell us about that experience?
Yeah, like I was saying before, it was a really, really great experience where I realized that I wasn't alone in the way I was watching films. I found kindred spirits and when we started, I was so humbled because I felt I was the dumbest in the room, really, because Nihad and Disan and Alia were always making so much. I mean, they put so much care in the comments they made, but at the same time, it was so simple. There was nobody was trying to sound.
Like pretentious.
Yeah. It stayed really.
Because we know how Nihad can be.
Yeah. So I really, really loved it, for real. Because as much as I realized, okay, you can say the way we talked about the films in those meetings is the same way as I talk about films when I talk to Severin, who is part of Cinema One with me. And so I was like, okay, this is family too, this is another family from abroad, and I was happy to meet them. And that's what was the most important side of it for me throughout the process.
I love that. I'm going to throw two questions at you just to close us out. The first one is, I am curious about the fact that your film did play on the television in Martinique, and I didn't know if that was just kind of like, okay, we had to do this because of the funders and the TV money, and that there wasn't any sort of follow-up to that, to it premiering in Martinique. So I was curious about that, and I don't know if we have so much time, but the other question I do want to throw out, which is always a fun one, is what is bringing you joy? Two different questions, but if you can hit it, I'll give you an A+. You already got an A+, but...
So okay, no.
But for Saturday, for this morning, you'll get an A+.
Okay, so I mean, regarding the TV question, I'm not sure I got it.
So I was wondering if, like, how it was received. Did you even, were you even able, like, I don't know how the metrics show or how people,
I don't know. I mean, regarding metrics and everything, I don't know really. I had some feedback, obviously, from people I knew or from people who knew people who know me. So, but obviously, in those cases, you only get the positive feedback. Yeah. Okay, I didn't really get the negative feedback that was certainly there. and the feedback I had that I was really happy about is people sat down and watched the films in family, you know, parents and kids. They talked about it afterwards, you know. So for some, I heard some instances where people, it was the first time where they had a really deep discussions about those issues and about many stuff. So, and it happened in Martinique, but some people saw it in Guadeloupe too. So I was happy about it. I was happy about it. I realized that when some people saw it, because we did a how do you say that, avant-première, you know, before it went on TV, because it was something, yeah, for the funders. But uh, some people sent me messages after that. They say, you know, I have been through that myself. I was in a hospital for X month, you know, and so your film hit something really deep inside of me. This kind of stuff. So it was. Yeah, I had really, really deep feedback from the film. And what the question was about? What?
The second question was, what is bringing you joy these days? What is making your heart sing? It doesn't have to even
Wow.
be about filmmaking.
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
can be about something else.
My kids.
There we go. Kids are joy.
My-
They're all right sometimes, but
I think the most pure joy I get these days is from my two daughters. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Wally Fall, for
Thank
being
you, thank
here
you.
with us at BlackStar.
Thank you very much.
Beautiful film. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And we'll
Thank
see
you.
y'all soon.
Thank you.